Moving on to our next, we have our guest. He's the Senior Special Advisor to the President on Public Affairs. We have with us Ajuri Ngalale. Good morning, Ajuri. Are you there? Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, ladies. I'm here with you. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Yes, good to have you. So, Ajuri, we have a lot to talk to you about. And it's because of Nigeria. Many Nigerians are confused about the plans of the presidency concerning a lot of issues on security, economy, trade, and even health, education, and all that, especially with this COVID-19. Ajuri, please, the first thing I'd like to ask is, what exactly is your principal's plan concerning the economy? A lot of businesses are falling apart. Many people are losing money. They're not even sure how or where to invest again in this country. What exactly is the plan for this government concerning our economy, especially because I think 41% of our budget now is on recurrent, and I think about 30% is for capital projects. How do you expect to spend this money judiciously going forward?
Thank you very much for this opportunity. Let me just say that there's nothing more paramount right now when we talk about the economy than the issue of job sustenance and job creation. I say job sustenance because we're in a season where we're losing jobs as a result of the impact of COVID-19 on the economy, and we're trying to ensure that as many jobs are sustained as possible. So under the leadership of President Buhari, this administration put in place an unprecedented measure, what we call the Survival Fund, in which we have been able to save well over 400,000 jobs as we speak across about 100,000 MSMEs across all states of the Federation. In effect, what we do is we send digital payments into the accounts of employees of MSMEs across the country where their owners or the founders of those MSMEs had applied for the Survival Fund. So we're paying the salaries of their workers over the course of the next few months to ensure that those jobs are sustained. But sustaining jobs is one thing, creating jobs is another thing, and we're focused on both. So on the issue of job creation, we are obviously, tomorrow is a big day for us. We're launching the National Special Public Works Program where of course, we have recruited 1,000 young people across every single local government area of the Federation. 774,000 young people will be employed, building very strategic roads that we've identified, linking farms to markets, linking industries to ports, and several other measures that they'll be, involved in conducting. So we have a series of measures. One of them, another major one, was just yesterday. I'm sure maybe you would have seen it on the news when His Excellency, the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, went to go and inspect the finished, kind of model of the social housing program scheme, where we're constructing 300,000 jobs as part of the economic sustainability plan over the course of the next 12 to 16 months. These 300,000 homes, the construction of them will create 1.8 million direct jobs, and these are Nigerians who are going to be registering on nshp.gov.ng, the website, whether they're an artisan, an engineer, architect, quantity surveyor, accountant, any profession within the construction subsector. You go to that website and apply, and you will be constructing 300,000 homes across the country for your fellow Nigerians.
Okay. Let me go ahead.
Okay, so we have a lot of, there are a few, capital projects that are sort of on hold, especially with the rail lines, or haven't been finished yet. Are these things that are going to be finished this year? And I'm asking this because, the economic situation that we all are in, and many people are asking the questions, where should we channel our resources now? Are we channeling it to capital projects that are already on ground? Are we taking away from that? And, like the project you're just talking about that the Vice President was speaking about, those are concerns that we have. We're just worried that because of what we are struggling with right now, there may not be enough to go around.
Yes, thank you very much. It's a valid concern for those who may not be familiar with the specifics of the budget and what we've put in place to fund the budget. For the first time, really, I believe in our history as a country, well, certainly since 1999, we have been able to achieve with the 2020 budget, by March this year, we would have achieved a 100% budget execution, both across recurrent and capital. As of the end of this year, we were able to achieve about 89% capital, which is obviously the best that any administration has done since 1999. And the reason why we've been able to do that is because the president was able to establish the January to December budget cycle, which we've wanted to do for well over a decade, because of the politics of budget formulation in previous national assemblies, we couldn't get it done. But under this assembly, we've been able to get that done, and now we've been able to sustain that with 2021. The reason why that's important is because when you put in place a plan for capital projects and you have your budget cycle regularized, what it enables you to do is it provides predictability for contractors who maybe in the past, when you had an irregular budget cycle, they're not sure what they're going to get. So you can say, okay, we've budgeted 10 billion for this particular road within this year's budget. But as a result of the irregular budget cycle, they cannot be sure that that cash will actually be released to them, meaning that when it's time for them to mobilize workers and labor onto these projects, instead of putting out 100% of their labor force, they're putting out 40% because they're not sure how much money they're going to get that year. With the new budget cycle being sustained, kept and maintained, you're now having predictability where contractors across the country, whether it's on rail lines, roads, bridges, airports, seaports, power plants, etc., dams, they now have confidence to bring out their entire labor force because they have seen from 2020 that we are paying out every kobo that we tell them we are going to pay out. And our officials aren't asking for kickbacks as it was in previous administrations. So there are a lot of factors as to why we are very confident, not just from our 2020 experience, but moving forward, that the very scarce resources we have as a country to build the country over a short period of time, that those funds will be judiciously used. I think if you look across the capital component of this budget, you will see how targeted the spending is, because the president made an unprecedented, gave an unprecedented directive in the last budget speech. What did he say? He told the National Assembly and Nigerians that any MDA, any ministry, department, and agency that wants to inject any new project into their budget, they will be barred from doing so until they have verified and proven that the money they have allocated for ongoing projects will ensure their completion by 2023. If you have not been able to sufficiently resource ongoing projects to have them completed for the benefit of Nigerians and the benefit of the economy by 2023, no new projects. And so the focus of this budget is on ongoing projects to make sure that, like the railways you mentioned, roads, bridges, airports, etc., that they are going to be completed during this administration.
In October last year, the president proposed a 13.8 trillion to be signed as the budget. But right now, the lawmakers added an additional 505 billion. And I thought initially that everybody was trying to tighten their belts because of the economic recession that we are in at the moment. Why that increase on the side of the legislatures?
Thank you very much. It's a legitimate concern again. I think, whenever we've heard increases, when you talk about the dynamics of budget formulation, generally the idea that comes to the mind of every Nigerian, very naturally because of our recent history of the last 6-7 years or so, is the issue of budget padding. And that's really a concern, particularly when revenues and resources are scarce. But I want to make it clear this morning to our viewers that the increase that came this time had the full support and backing of President Muhammadu Buhari. And the reason why it did was because this was not a situation where National Assembly lawmakers came together and decided to vote billions of naira to buy tricycles in their local government areas. This was actually an input made by the executive to increase the funding for the social investment programs. The president graciously directed the expansion of existing social intervention programs to bring more Nigerians into the scope of the program, more beneficiaries across the country for these programs. And so we needed to add some money to that budget to ensure that we can scale that up. in specific terms, what it's going to enable us to do is about 365 billion or so is for the upscaling of the social investment programs, which is going to allow us to expand Empower from the current 500,000, where we have completed the batch C, 500,000, or we're just about completing, I believe, this month. And then we're moving into batch D, which will effectively be an additional 500,000. So we're scaling it up from 500,000 to 1 million beneficiaries, Empower. Then the president has also approved the upscaling of the homegrown school feeding program from the current 9.5 million school children being fed, of course, outside of the COVID era. As we restore back to normalcy, the 9.5 that are benefiting, we're scaling that up to 14 million. The president has approved provision of daily feeding for 5 million more children all across this country. And then he has also approved the expansion of the conditional cash transfer program by an additional 1 million households. So all
Ajuri,
of that is being factored into
I have to
the
go on a
increase that you
break,
mentioned.
but these figures sound so great when you talk about it, but you see there's a huge disconnect between the figures you're rolling out and to what the people are actually experiencing. We'll talk about that after the break. Stay with us, we'll be right back.
Stay tuned. Your view will be right back.
Wow. Thanks for staying with us. So we still have the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Public Affairs, Ajuri Ngalale. Ajuri, you still there?
I'm with you, my sister.
Good, good, good. Let me let Nima jump in here for a moment. Go ahead, Nima.
Ajuri, I heard you on, how the government is working so hard to bring Nigeria back economically or get us to the point of glory again. But then the president also mentioned that, saying that he will lift millions of Nigerians out of poverty in his New Year's speech. And I'm wondering, with all the trader money, all the Empower, and all the people who depend on this, policies that you talk about, those who are working on it, especially the Empower, I can use that one as an example.
Yeah.
How have you yourself, as a government, rated the effect of the monies you're pushing out? So we have the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs giving out cash, going. Have you gone around Nigeria to take the pulse of people or see whether the money is safe? They turn out results. Is it working?
And even the school feeding program too.
Is it working? Are these things working? And Nigerians happy?
Yes. Thank you very much. When you look at the way the social investment programs are structured, I think so much of the suspicion that has arisen around how, for example, the conditional cash transfer is being administered has to do with maybe insufficient communication on the part of government, perhaps, on how these programs work. We worked very closely with the World Bank to formulate a process that is based on a targeting system where we involve, and this is a non-partisan effort, where we involve traditional leaders, not just traditional rulers, but also leaders in the community, market women, etc., who identify the poorest households in these communities. It is on the basis of that process that we identify the beneficiaries. It is only after they have been registered and they go through a formalized process, that is a process that is being monitored and evaluated by our partners at the World Bank, that they are now able to receive the cash. But because of, I think, insufficient maybe communication and understanding across the public domain, there's this idea out there that this is some kind of whimsical, arbitrary process by which a minister goes out and just hands cash to people. Whereas this is something that is properly structured and properly monitored. And that's why these programs that we're talking about, it's not just an APC program. This is a Nigerian program from a Nigerian administration to the Nigerian people for the Nigerian people.
In order not to misunderstand ourselves, help me clarify. What I meant was, has this in any way reduced unemployment? We had an increase in unemployment. We have an increase in inflation. You're giving out money. Are you necessarily changing the situation of the people,
Let me add to that. So since you have World Bank doing your M&E, what reports are they giving to you to show in evaluating what you've done so far?
World Bank is not here. What model are you using to critique yourself, to evaluate yourself and see whether your policies yield results? Or don't you think you should change them if they're not working?
That's a fantastic question. Look, the first thing is, it's not a coincidence that that this administration has received international awards by many of our partners in places like New York and even in North Africa. We've won these awards on the basis of what they have seen us do, not on the basis of what we said we did. And that's the difference. When you have people, like the World Bank is on the ground in this country, you know they have a country office. We are working directly with them. The funds that we use are not just funds that come out of the Nigerian federal budget. These are also funds from donors. These are people who are donating money. So it's not just, we actively, this was part of the system that was initially created, the architecture that was initially created by His Excellency the Vice President to ensure probity and effective administration of this program, was to intentionally take donor funds so that we can bring donors on board as part of the monitoring evaluation process. And in terms of feedback, as you've asked, there are two forms of feedback. Number one, we get the technical feedback, obviously, where they see shortcomings that we can resolve, where they see things that are being well done. But really, where you're going to see the actual opinion of the people you're working with, not just the awards, that's one expression of opinion. The other part of it is, are they willing to reinvest? So now, if you look at the 2021 budget, the scaling up of these programs, a lot of these funds are coming from donor fund injections. The reason why they have confidence in injecting these funds for further expansion of the programs is because they have seen that these funds are being judiciously utilized. You asked the question.
I get your point. You know, Ajuri, you know why I like you? Because I think...
you asked a critical question about the issue of whether we're making dent on unemployment.
Yeah, now, you've answered the question.
Where we are with unemployment, and there's no doubt about the fact that we have an unemployment problem in this country. When you have well over 1 million young people coming into the labor force every single year, right, you are going to have a situation where even if you created 500,000 jobs that year, or I'm just using a figure. If it's not up to 1 million and exceeding 1 million, that means the unemployment rate, no matter how many jobs you're creating, if it's not up to that, the unemployment rate is rising, meaning that you have to create more than that. That's on the one side. On the other side, we have an issue in this country of statistical process management, data management. One is that if you look at the statistics coming from the National Bureau of Statistics, and this is a real problem that we are working very closely to address, is we do not yet have an accurate measurement of the informal sector of this country. And we know that the informal sector is dominant in rural communities across this country, and even within our urban centers. Right now, if you are owning a small stall in a market, or if you are owning a shop in a rural community, and you are earning well above the poverty range of $1 a day per average, and many of our people do, they are not being captured in these NBS statistics. And that is a major problem, because if you're only capturing people who work at TBC, or people who work in the presidency, or people who work at MTN, or Shell, or any of these well-known private sector companies where you clock in, you sit down, you pay your tax, if that is what we're capturing, then we're not going to have an accurate picture of how many jobs are being created, how many people are being empowered, and what our actual poverty rate is. And that is a major problem.
Okay, Ajuri, I've heard everything you said, and I understand most of it. But now that we finally signed the Africa Continental Free Trade Zone, how do we benefit from this new exposure? Because we're happy that, yes, we can now export some of our goods to other African countries seamlessly. But how would it benefit our economy? Could you shed some light on this for us?
Thank you very much. So with the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, you're talking about a trading bloc of approximately a combined GDP of about $3.3 or $3.5 trillion. It would be the largest in the world once it's fully actualized. Really what we stand to benefit from it is obviously the elimination or at least drastic reduction to elimination of intra-African trade barriers such as import tariffs, et cetera, et cetera. Some of the things that have been put in place we're particularly positioned to benefit from it now, as opposed to, say, 2014, 2015, because of the president's action in relation to the ECOWAS sub-region on the issue of the multi-billion-dollar illicit smuggling that was going on before the president took the courageous decision in August 2019 to close the border. Immediately, what we saw was, in effect, for those who may not be familiar with what was happening, you had basically countries like Benin Republic making hundreds of millions of dollars, importing things like rice from Vietnam. They're paid their customs duties and everything. They're now sending it across the border to the Nigerian market at the detriment of Nigerian producers, processors, and manufacturers, etc. Now, because we have been able to effectively shut that down, the next month after the president closed the border, what did we see? Our customs revenues at the ports had almost doubled, which became very important when you talk about funding an economy during the COVID-19 pandemic with the revenue shortfalls. But the larger message we sent to the rest of the continent is that the decades that we have been, essentially a dumping ground. Our market has been a dumping ground because we hadn't been producing almost anything. We've been importing almost everything, receiving smuggled goods and all of that. We've sent the message now that if you're doing business with Nigeria, you have to do it the right way. Otherwise, we'll shut it down. And the fact of the matter is we have the most ingenious producers, creators, processors, manufacturers. We have we have the entrepreneurial spirit. We have the numbers. So for us now, we are saying, I'm sorry?
I want to go on a quick break. We'll continue with you in a moment. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned. Your view will be right back.
Thanks for staying with us. We still have our guest with us. Yes, Miriam had a question.
So Ajuri, last year especially, we had Nigerian traders in Ghana constantly complaining that they were specifically discriminated against. And many people, said it had to do with government stance on closing the borders. And I'm wondering, with this new trade agreement that has just commenced, would a government like Nigeria decide out of the blue to shut down borders because it feels that its economic situation is, is being threatened, or, there are ways that, or it ties their hands when they need to take out important decisions concerning the economy?
No, I don't think in any way, shape, or form hands are tied. In fact, what it has done is it has provided an extra source of leverage for us in negotiations with our partners across the border and across the sub-region and across the continent on other issues of import. So, for example, the Ghanaians know very well that under the leadership of Mr. President, we can wield the stick. And that's not something they've ever really seen before. So what now happens, if you noticed, after we entered into consultations and negotiations with our neighboring countries, we have now been able to put in place mechanisms to ensure, for example, that the kinds of parasitic, dynamics of the relationship against Nigeria at the benefit of these other countries has been put to rest. And that's why you've now seen the president reopen the border. But it's not purely an economic issue when you talk about issues of xenophobia. If you recall, when South Africans were engaging in their nonsense for 2017, 2018, when it got really bad, the borders were open. We didn't have any issues where, in terms of economic tit for tat when that was going on. That just had to do with the socio-cultural disposition of their people. The same thing you're seeing in Ghana. The fact of the matter is, everywhere Nigerians go, we dominate, we excel, we rise to the top. And the reason why that is because God has given us innate abilities, where we have a work ethic that's very uncommon. Right. We have capacity that's uncommon. And so as long as that continues to be the case, whether we're in Russia, Singapore, or the United States, or South Africa, or Ghana, you're going to continue to have people who are indigenous to those countries feeling threatened by the capacity of the Nigerians they meet.
Right. Okay. All right, Ajuri. Nigerians are concerned about the growing budget deficits and our rising debts. And we're asking ourselves, is there we can't see a clear-cut arrangement on revenue allocation. So can you, in simple words, tell us the plans that we have for revenue allocation generation? Yeah.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Thank you very much. So a major part of this is the finance bill that it was put in place in 2019, and then the second one that has now been put in place again in 2020, which is like a deepening of some of those amendments. First of all, in the first finance bill, what we did, very intentionally, and this was before we knew COVID was coming, was we put in place exemptions for MSMEs in this country, tax exemptions for MSMEs earning less than 25 million naira in a year in annual profit. They are now paying 0% company income tax. For medium-scale enterprises They have seen a reduction in their company income tax from 30% down to 20%. This is all to spur investment, spur the expansion of existing businesses, in addition to the bailouts that we're giving out. On top of that, we obviously, with that Finance Bill 2019, we raised VAT by 2.5%. That has also availed more resources to the states to ensure that they can pay
Right. So we're trying to get Ajuri back.
While we're waiting,
While we're waiting, just a few tweets.
Okay, so Nigerians are not smiling. Go bad speaks. Mr. Ajuri needs...
We had 13 million taxpayers in this country in 2015. As we speak now, we have well over 30. So we've been able to expand the tax base, and that has been critical in terms of raising our revenue base and our capacity to support our budgets. But to your point, we are not yet there. We're still operating a budget deficit, which means we have to borrow. That is why the president is saying all the expenditures must go to existing ongoing projects, only those which will add economic value to the life of this country. So what do I mean? The expansion of Lagos-Ibadan Railway into Apapa Port, very strategic. We're going to be decongesting Apapa Port by use of the high-speed rail line, taking containers off of the roads onto the rail lines where we're building a dry inland port in Ibadan to off-take the containers. We have airports, seaports, power plants that we're investing in within this budget. Obviously, the rail lines, the new rail line that we're building from Ibadan to Kano, the extension of Lagos-Ibadan, that is also ongoing. And we also have 200 billion naira that we're paying counterpart to start the construction 3,000 megawatt Mambila hydropower project in Taraba. So there is a lot in this budget that's going to add value to the economy. So we are saying, if we're investing money in capital projects, let it be projects that will pay back because of their importance to the development of the economy.
Okay, Ajuri, just by the side, when will the rail line to Apapa be complete?
Thank you very much. So already we've commissioned the original line from Iju to Ibadan. We already have passengers commuting on that line. The extension to Apapa, as you asked, I believe that is targeted for next month. I believe it's February completion. To have that done and commissioned. So we're on the cusp.
Can I hold you to that?
We're on the cusp of it. That should be done very soon.
Quickly, please. Sorry to my real question. Did you see what happened with the unemployed youth during the hashtag EndSARS in October? A lot of idle hands, backfired on the government. What plans does this government have now to engage the youth?
Thank you. So aside from the expansion of Empower, because we know 500,000 to 1 million is not going to get it done on its own, aside from the 774,000 jobs that we put in place through the Special Public Works Program that's kicking off tomorrow, we're also putting in place, we're also putting in place the very critical measure of the economic sustainability plan's implementation. From the housing scheme, 1.8 million new jobs targeted at youths. The solar power scheme, where we're placing over 5 million solar home units across rural communities across the country, that's employing 250,000 youth separate. And then we also have the 75 billion naira creative fund, the Nigerian Youth Investment Fund, that is being funded with the 2021 budget, where our young people specifically are going to be able to go and get basically zero interest capital for their startups in financial technology, in creative arts sector, and others. And I think the last thing I would mention in terms of youth empowerment, which is very, very critical, is that as we move forward, all of the various plans that we have in place, that we are implementing, not just plans on paper, but that we're implementing, we are focused on making sure that all of these construction projects across the country, that we are focusing on the young people, and especially in agriculture, where we have already put out about 500 billion naira in low-interest capital for farmers to employ young farmers, young people who can be kind of like proteges on farmlands across this country, so that there is a cross-generational transition for the future of the agricultural sector in Nigeria. So all of that is being
Ajuri, you know what? Ajuri, you are every politician's dream, because you can convey the message that you discuss within your meetings. But the truth is that everything you said, many Nigerians, I want you to hear from the streets. And we're going to read a few tweets because you need to understand. We hear the plans. Obviously, you guys, you've come up with this beautiful blueprint of what you're doing. All the percentages that have been done out, how many jobs we will have that would create and all that. But the truth is, Nigerians are not feeling it. So is it because of our population? Is it because of lack of planning? I'm not sure, but let me read a few tweets.
Yeah, let me just give you a specific. So this person is saying, Gobaz Speak is saying that businesses are crumbling due to high cost of materials. There is nothing in place to help. Government loans are only heard but not seen. So these are sort of things that Nigerians are talking about. People in Kaduna are saying insecurity. Every day there are stories of people being kidnapped, being murdered. What is the actual specific plan?
We'll talk about insecurity another day because I think we're most on the economy today, but we have to run out of time. But you get the picture that Nigerians are not feeling what you're saying. Go ahead, Ajuri.
Very quickly, let me just say, I have no interest in being articulate. My interest is in being truthful. At the end of the day, I'm going to be out of this office soon, and who I am as a man and what my principles and values are will always stand for me. Whatever I have said on this program, I can verify. And that is what I always tell our people. I understand that there will be skepticism and suspicion because of the failed leadership of several decades in succession. So we have a lot to do in terms of, bridging that trust deficit. And the only way we can do it is by doing what we say we're going to do. So when we said we will do 500,000 Empower, we did it. When we said we will do 5 million trader money, we did it. When we said all of these things, infrastructure, we did it. So when we say we're going to do these other ones tomorrow, you can trust that we're going to do it. My own issue is this.
But let me add one thing for you, sir. Ajuri, hear me out here. Let me take my advice. In bridging that gap, you need to tell your principal that after 43 people were killed and massacred, slaughtered, he should have spoken to us. That would bridge the gap. We need him to speak to Nigerians. That's one of the first things Nigerians expected from your principal. So if you tell me you're bridging the gap by creating these jobs, we've not heard from our president. There are so many things he's not doing. Like we hear he's doing, but he's not telling us he's doing.
And we don't feel it.
We don't feel it, Ajuri. So we need you to bridge the gap properly.
We need a human face to the bridging gap.
Recognize that all these economic plans that I've discussed with you, the president was he spoke in deeper detail during the budget speech where he provided all the insight. If you want to talk about the president speaking out to the public, not just Independence Day, on New Year's Day, laid out the fact that yes, there's insecurity. Yes, he's hearing Nigerians. He said it, that I'm hearing you. And even those of you who disagree with me and my policies, I respect your view because all of us are looking for the best interest of this country. He's listening to Nigerians, he's communicating to Nigerians, but I think that many people who don't want to hear him don't hear him, but he is speaking.
Okay, so we have to wrap up, Ajuri. But it's nice having you. I mean, you should get additional job, actually. I would recommend you for additional job easily because I think you are able to complete All right, thank you, Ajuri. I have to let you go. Thank you so much for joining us. It's always a pleasure having you on the show. We'll bring you back for insecurity. It's so important to talk to you about insecurity.
Whenever you want me, I'm ready to discuss that. Yes.
Great.
Thank you.
All right, that's all we can take. Ladies, you want to take
sweets? Toby Martin says the major aim for this 2021 is how to value our naira again so that Empower money can add value to someone's life and fix our refinery. Because it is strange for an oil-producing country that cannot refine its oil. This is so sad.
You got to close. Unfortunately, you have to run.
Thank
you
so
much for joining us. That's all we can take. Have a fabulous day. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye for now.
Bye. Wow.